All right, Global Rhythm, CIUT 89.5 FM, and there you go, the track titled Fomenta, and I would go check out the video. You can find it on YouTube. It's quite a treat to watch. Global Rhythms is the program. My name is Ken Stowar, host and producer. Thank you very much for being here. It's the third and final hour of the program this morning. And my very special guest in the studio is David Catallo. And he's brought along his guitar. He's a flamenco and classical guitarist. And we'll be speaking with him in just a moment. But just before we do, I thought we would play the title track of his debut CD. This is David Catallo. There you have the title track of the debut CD by my in-studio guest this morning, David Catallo. And David, the title of the CD?
The title of the CD, La Fuente y El Arroyo, which basically translated means the fountain and the stream.
All right, excellent. You know, that's the first time I've heard that track, and maybe the song calls for it, but I hear quite an aggressive style.
Yeah, I think that it's a type of flamenco palos, fandangos de Huelva, and it does have that sort of gyrating, pounding style, especially when it comes to the compás, which is sort of the refrain that keeps coming back, and that high energy you sort of have to carry through even into the falsetto, which is the other parts, right? And it's a great type of flamenco palos.
Excellent. Well executed to my ears. So, you know, it must be a big thrill after all the years of hard work, study, and so on to come to the point where you're able to put out your very first release?
Yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic. Roger Skinora, obviously, has been very, very helpful to me. He's been just absolutely essential in making this whole thing happen. Giving me pointers and very important advice from a flamenco master, which you can't just go out there and make a flamenco CD without having that kind of training, right? It's such a special kind of music, flamenco especially, that it requires some of that sense of community, like being accepted into a community where you get tutelage from someone who knows, someone who's sort of experienced the oral tradition through the ages. And Roger's been very helpful with that. And I studied with him at York University, because I was there for the last 2 years studying specifically classical and flamenco guitar. And he's been very, very helpful with me with getting this CD on there.
Well, Roger's been a guest on this program numerous times. Always wonderful to have him here. And as you mentioned, one of the people that you have studied with, there's another former guest of this program you studied with, too. That's Brian Katz.
Yeah, Brian, I studied with at York, and just a phenomenal player. Just so much knowledge and just so much experience in all kinds of different fields, right?
Right.
He's just, you can talk with him for hours, you can get lessons from him for hours and still be learning brand new things just because he's had so much experience.
Yeah.
Just a fantastic guitarist, not just technically, but also just what he brings and what he's done so far comes through in his new music.
Let me make an assumption here that your instrument of choice when you first decided to play music was probably the guitar.
Absolutely, yeah. I went to high school, and I was, like many people do, but I was into the guitar, and like so many kids who are into the guitar, I idolized Jimi Hendrix and Van Halen and all those sort of things. And I lived in, I guess you can call it the boonies, right? So there wasn't too many people around, and many of the friends I had didn't really play instruments, right? So I found it was always tough just sort of playing along with CDs like Van Halen CDs, because you can't really do the whole song yourself. Then my uncle gave me a CD by John Williams, the famous classical guitarist, and and I think I was 16, 17 at the time.
Yeah.
I must have ripped apart the label of that CD so many times looking for the second guitarist, because I just thought there was two guitars playing, and I was convinced.
Yeah.
But it all came from one guitar, and and that was just absolutely amazing to me that it all came from one guitar, and that's what really started me on sort of the classical path away from the pop music and the metal and all that stuff.
I was going to ask you, so that was probably the point where it led you to flamenco.
Yeah. Eventually, so classical guitar, listening to John Williams, Julian Bream, and a lot of the most popular repertoire in the classical repertoire for guitar is, Spanish-based. You have Albanese, and you have Rodrigo. You have all these great Spanish composers and artists who are taking from the flamenco tradition. So it was a slow process of me tracing it all back towards this thing called flamenco. Right? And obviously along the way you find people like Paco de Lucia, who unfortunately passed away this year. Really sad. But the ultimate flamenco guitar master, Paco Peña, Sabicas, all these great players, and you see that what they did with the guitar really led to what was able to be done with the classical guitar. Right? So it's sort of, I traced it all back and then sort of found flamenco through that.
Fantastic. So I gather a lot of your peers at the time when you were 16 weren't into flamenco music as you were leaning toward at that time.
It was so tough to have people over and show them. I can remember just showing them Mediterranean Sundance by Paco de Lucia, Al Di Meola, and John McLaughlin, right? And I was just like, you guys got to hear this. This is amazing. And, they just want to play, like, Goo Goo Dolls or something like that. Right? Just want to play the pop stuff. And I was just totally entranced. So when I was learning, for the most part, I hadn't taken any lessons up until I was about 20 or so. And then I decided that, learning from tab probably wasn't the best way to keep going with classical. So then I took it upon myself to find a teacher, Bobby Edwards, who's a great jazz and classical player. He sort of guided me through all the sheet music and understanding how to learn all that stuff. And with that, I just sort of did it as a hobby. So I'm sort of coming to music late in life because before that I was actually a microbiology technician. So I worked in the field of microbiology for food, right? Yeah, and but I changed jobs, had different things. Went to Taiwan for a while to teach English. The one thing was that through it all, I found that the guitar was the constant. So I decided that, maybe I'll give it a shot. Went to university, studied for a while. Thankfully met, Roger and Brian. Obviously, they really coached me a lot and helped me to sort of make this album, and especially Roger, yeah.
Excellent. Well, maybe before, as we go along here, maybe now is a good time where we could ask you to play for us live in the studio, if you would be so kind. That'd be great.
Yeah, and I'll play the first track from the album, which is La Musa, means the muse. It's a rumba. And rumba is the best way to introduce a person who's never heard of flamenco to flamenco. It's definitely one of the most infectious.
All right, here we go. This is David Catallo playing live in the studio right here this morning on CIUT 89.5 FM. All right, very nicely done. Live in the studio here during Global Rhythms this morning, David Catallo. And David, I thought it was only appropriate that, alongside having your guitar mic up, that I had your vocal mic up too, so we could hear you breathe. The breathing and the guitar playing it works together well.
Yeah,
it stresses the kind of how involved you are with the actual playing.
Oh, good. The passion came out through the breathing.
Absolutely.
I'm glad to hear it. Fantastic.
Tell us a little bit about the guitar that you're playing, that you're using this morning.
Basically, I don't have $10,000 to buy myself, the very high-end type of flamenco guitars, which many of them do cost that much. But I've got a Takamine, Japanese-made, factory-made, but I like it. It's a little workhorse. Obviously there's better tones and better guitars, but I'm big on the action of the guitar, and for those of you who don't know what the action is, it's just how easy the strings are to hold down and play over the frets. I think Glenn Gould, I read, had a similar thing to say about action in terms of for the piano, though. And he always looked for something that was just easy on the fingers, something that made it easy to move from one place to the other and stuff like that.
All right. Well, I'm speaking with David Catallo. He is a classical and flamenco guitarist, and he is my special guest this morning on Global Rhythms right here on CIUT 89.5 FM. Well, earlier you mentioned some of the individuals that you studied with, including our good friend Roger Scanura, along with Brian Katz and others as well. But I understand that you teach as well now.
Yeah, that's right. I'm associated with fetchclass.com. That's an online resource for setting up lessons with musicians, anywhere in the world, and it's great because, when I did teach, because for a while I taught at Arcadia Academy of Music in Bolton, and I taught there for 2 years, and the only complaint I ever got from parents and things like that, or the only problems I ever saw, was just the fact that you had to sign contracts, and it's tough to really make up the schedule. But parents' lives are so hectic, and even people's lives are so hectic, so if they want to set up lessons and from week to week they can't make it, it's always a big deal. But with fetchclass.com you can go on, set up whatever lessons you want whenever you want, sign no contracts, and just pay as you go, which is great. I also teach, I live in Guelph, and I teach from my house or drive to students' houses if they prefer. And that always works out well. And that's basically for teaching.
So you live in Guelph?
I do, yes.
You just alluded to that. Wow, what a great music city.
It really is.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, the open mics there aren't like any other open mics I've ever been to. That's for sure. Magnolia Cafe is fantastic down there. The Cornerstone, which I've played at a couple of Saturdays when it was an open mic. But it's really open kind of atmosphere. It's fantastic.
I don't know if you're aware or not, but CIUT, I guess it's been 12 years running now that we broadcast live from the Guelph Jazz Festival down, was up at Upper Wyndham Street until they moved it back to City Hall, the Saturday, the free day site. And fantastic. It's just so well put together. And, it was upon my very first time at that festival where I immediately got the sense of what a great music city Guelph is. It's a university town as well. Lots of clubs, lots of cafes, as you mentioned. And great city. Adrian Rasso, I guess, is in that. Do you know Adrian Rasso?
No, I'm not sure, actually.
Yeah, great guitar player, too.
Okay.
Just did some wonderful work with the Romanian outfit, Fanfare e Ciocolia. And the city's loaded with great musicians just like you.
Oh, thank you very much.
So what was the transition like from student to being teacher? What's that like?
Well, it's a little different. I had taught, but not guitar. I had taught English as a second language when I was in Taiwan. And it was that was good that I had that because then it became a lot easier to do the music thing, to teach the music thing, teaching guitar. As a student, the funny thing is that for so long I had been doing it on my own, right? Like I had been independently taught, through all my teen years and stuff like that. So what I try to do with teaching specifically is try to make sure that the student realizes that this is a great thing called music, right? It's a great thing on the guitar, and it's really up to them what they want to do and how far they want to go. So they really have to And so I'm just sort of a guide to help them along the way.
Right.
And I think that helps a lot of people because there's so many stresses for kids nowadays. You know, they have to get into university, they have to get good grades, they have to really, you know, hammer down in order to make the grade in school nowadays. Music's just a great reprise, right? It's just a wonderful thing to do on the side, and you sort of, the discipline that you show is rewarding in itself, right? Without having to be any real results.
Let me get your opinion about the status of flamenco today, be it locally or just in general around the world.
Well, I think flamenco, the great thing about flamenco is that it's a folk tradition, and so many people, you might talk to people who consider any folk tradition as an insulated sort of thing, right? It's not meant to be changed. It's, you know, if you're going to play music of the American Appalachians, you know, you have to use a dulcimer and you have to sing a certain way and it has to be this and that. But I think folk music, just like flamenco music, it's really all about what they take in and how much gets absorbed into it. So I feel more open about the idea of folk music and flamenco music. It's about what you provide and your own voice, what you're providing to the whole landscape of flamenco music. And nowadays, you know, you have people like Vicente Amigo, Gerardo Nunez, people in Spain who are flamenco artists, but are, you know, starting to include things like jazz and things like very avant-garde stuff. And it's just, you know, that's the folk idea, right? It's just open arms. Anything we can get, we'll take and reshape what it becomes.
Have you been to Spain as of yet?
I have not, and I need to go, absolutely. Anyone who I've talked to or heard of who has gone to Spain to study flamenco guitar hasn't come back. So I feel like it's going to be a one-way ticket, so I need to make preparations for that. But yeah, that's the hope, is to go to Spain and probably never come back. I might intend to come back, but I won't be able to come back, unfortunately.
Well, listen, why don't we, if you don't mind, go back to your roots. You alluded to, you know, being initially influenced by such players as John Williams and so on. And so why don't we hear something in classical mode, if you don't mind?
Oh, sure.
Would you be so kind to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is called Antonietta, which is named after my mother. Basically, just a classical piece. Not really in any particular style. I didn't have anything sort of intended with it, but sort of came out, I think, okay. We'll see.
Okay, and I'll turn down your vocal mic for this one.
Okay, thanks.
All right, here we go. Live in the studio this morning during Global Rhythms is David Catallo. All right, wonderful performance live in the studio here, Studio 3, Harthouse, University of Toronto, during Global Rhythms. And my name is Ken Stowar, and my special guest is David Catallo, classical and flamenco guitarist. Yet another very wonderful live performance, David. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it. Let's talk a little bit about some of the upcoming gigs that you have. I see that you will be performing with Ritmo Flamenco Ensemble.
That's right, yeah. I'd love to do a shout-out to Ritmo Flamenco, obviously headed by Roger Scanura, and Angelica Scanura, his daughter, and his wife, Valerie Scanura. Just a fantastic group, just the absolute noble family of flamenco guitar in Canada. And they've been kind enough to let me sort of tag along and play in a couple of their performances. January 8th, they're at the COC, and then the dance weekend on January 16th. And also in the end of March, we'll be playing the Harbourfront Center. And this is really just to feature really Angelica Scanura, who's just an unbelievable...
Wonderful.
Oh my God, just fantastic. Not just flamenco, but also belly dancing, very much into that tradition. And she's just making huge waves for sure in the dance world.
Excellent. And I think you touched upon it a bit earlier. You do play locally in Guelph and the surrounding area.
That's right. I play, every once in a while, I play at the Red Brick Cafe, wonderful venue for local artists on Wednesday nights. Every once in a while, I play at the Cornerstone as well, also in Guelph. I have regular gigs. For the last couple of months, I've been doing Aroma in London, Aroma Mediterranean Restaurant. If you've ever been to London, Ontario, it's just a great place. Really, really great atmosphere, and they let me play up on the balcony, so it really just pounds the sound through. It's a really cool venue, actually. Also, I play at La Scala in Mississauga some Saturday nights here and there. Usually it's a great restaurant, fantastic place also.
Now, with your CD out and available, and we'll get to where people can buy that in a minute, any plans to tour with that CD release?
Well, this is my first one, so I'm sort of getting a sense of what the next steps are as I go. But hopefully there'll be CD release parties next year. There'll be probably one in April in the Toronto area at Ritmo Flamenco Studios in Liberty Village. I'm also hoping to have one in Guelph. Haven't decided on what venue, but perhaps one in Guelph and maybe one in North York. Sort of right now I'm just thinking about CD release parties. In terms of touring, I'd love to. I just don't know what's involved in that. I'm still getting started.
Well, as a solo artist, you pack a bag of change of clothes, your guitar,
and that's touring.
Away you go.
That's great. Fantastic. That's touring. Done. I can do that.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
So you do have a website.
DavidCatelloGuitar.com. I'd also like to give a shout out to Luke Muldoon, who engineered the album, did a fantastic job, really the consummate professional, wonderful, wonderful engineer.
Well, I'd like to just give a shout out to some people that are listening now. There's some immediate response coming back to me here through social media and so on. Murray Cumming, who just came back from Ireland, he lives just down the road. He's listening to you and enjoying your performance on the air, as well as our good friend Binny, who does the mix sessions here each and every Saturday morning. She's in Sydney, Australia. She provides us that show every week. And Jim McCarty, the drummer of the Yardbirds, who lives in Provence, he spends a lot of time in Toronto. He's listening as well. And Gian Manalo, who lives in the south of France, somewhere near Nice, is listening too, as well as everybody in Toronto and Guelph and the surrounding area.
Oh, that's great to hear. Fantastic.
So lots of wonderful people listening to you perform live.
And thank you again. I can't thank you enough for having me on here. It's a great show. I love it. It's awesome.
Also, I'd like to ask you, as you go along, are there any specific artists that one day you might like to collaborate with, play with, whether it's live performance or recording or both?
Yeah, I mean, it's so sad that Paco de Lucia died, but not even just to play with him. I would just love to have seen him live. I mean, that alone would have been fantastic. There's so many flamenco artists. I mean, Vicente Amigo, just to be an accompanist with Vicente Amigo. He's really a fantastic new flamenco guitarist. Well, not really new, last 20 years or so.
Yeah.
But just amazing guitarist that I would love to play with. Hopefully when I go to Spain, because all these guys are out in Spain. So, and I gotta sort of get better at the Spanish as well.
Well, this is, as a guitar player, I think you'd be interested. I don't know if you're aware, based on people I know that teach guitar or work at music stores, there appears to be a real downturn in people taking guitar lessons because you can go online and get some degree of instruction that way. But from my perspective, wow, you'd be missing a lot. Just simply learning how to, it's like painting by numbers almost.
Oh, no, you make it. No, that's a fantastic point. What a great point you bring up for sure. What I found was it's strange because when I was teaching in Bolton, I would have to teach a couple of pop guitar and metal guitar and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is just how many resources are on the internet for that stuff, right?
Yes,
Like for Metallica and all the rest of them, right? Tabs on the internet and like literally videos that go play by play on exactly how to play each bit and part and just copy it exactly, right?
Yeah.
So I always found it troublesome to teach pop and stuff like that, to teach pop music, popular music, and metal. But the thing about classical and flamenco guitar is that it's such an involved and technical process. It's not just a single pick working the strings, right? It's your whole body has to get into it. It's all about body position. It's all about where you're putting your fingers, how you're positioning your wrist, things like that. and that stuff really doesn't come through in a lot of the resources online. So I think with classical and flamenco, there's a definite need for going one-on-one with somebody who can like really sort of shape exactly how you go, because if you start off on the wrong foot, it can really be, and obviously I did in a couple spots because I was independently sort of trained and then said, okay, I'm backing myself into a corner, I need to go to lessons in order to sort of get myself out of these odd habits that are really getting me nowhere. So, if you do like flamenco and classical guitar, I would definitely suggest, you can start out by watching some YouTube videos on rasgueado and stuff like that. But eventually, the end game is really to get a teacher to help you along for sure.
Well, I have the utmost respect for those that make the time to do the studying, the research, and to develop that discipline, that's required to end up being able to play such as you do now. That's a lot of time and effort and great passion and commitment.
Yeah, and for me, it really just started out as a hobby. So, I'd be doing my microbiology thing, and I'd come home, and I'd be, but it's something that I couldn't get away from. I heard flamenco music, and I could not get away from it, and classical music, and I can't get away from it. And it really just, it sucks you in, and you have no real control. And you try to get everybody else on board, too, and that'll be the danger part of it, too, is you're just going to start to talk to all your friends about it, and they're probably just going to get frustrated because some people just won't get into it. But when you do, it's magical. It really is.
All right. Well, David, we're just about ready to wrap up the interview and that here this morning. I want to thank you very much for making the time to be here. Really appreciate it. And again, the title of your debut CD.
La Fuente y El Arroyo. And if you want to buy it, you could just go to CD Baby and look up David Catallo. That's David Catallo, Catallo. It's the only album there for David Catallo. And it's available on CD Baby for purchase.
All right. And I do hope you'll consider coming back sometime in the near or distant future and join us again.
Oh, this will be my first stop on all my debut releases in the future.
And, good luck with your future endeavors. And you sound great player. Really appreciate you making the time, as I said, being here today. But I'm not going to let you go without playing one more number live in the studio for us.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I'd love to. So this is a Belarius, which is another flamenco palos. And it's called Cazadora, which means hunting girl. Sort of taken from a Jethro Tull song. The title, anyway. I didn't rip anything else out from it, don't worry. All
right. Here is David Catallo. Once again, live during Global Rhythms on CIUT 89.5 FM. And David, thank you again. All right, again, my thanks to my very special guest this morning, David Catallo, classical and flamenco guitarist. And I'll be posting all of David's information, website info, the title of his CD, how you can acquire it on Facebook, Global Rhythms, CIUT, just shortly after 9 a.m. this morning. So thanks again to David Catallo. Wonderful to have him here in the studio to play live for you this morning during Global Rhythms. So